We have a lot to cover in today's video. Some new, pretty substantial trade rumors have been floating around through NHL insiders today, including Parayko maybe being of interest to the Ottawa Senators. Could Brock Boeser head back to his home state of Minnesota in a trade with the Wild? Things appear to be getting closer to a Schenn trade. The Maple Leafs appear to be looking to add on the blue line. We have a couple of players they may be keeping an eye on. Plus, could we see some goaltenders between the deadline and the early part of the offseason, like Thatcher Demko in Vancouver and John Gibson in Anaheim, be on the move, finding a new home? Plus, we have 3 players on waivers and some injury updates as well. All that coming up next. So welcome back to another video here at Top Shelf Hockey. As I mentioned, we have a variety of things to talk about, lots of trade rumors, but first we have some other news to jump into here. First, getting started with news from the NHL waiver wire. The Toronto Maple Leafs have forward Joey Anderson on waivers today. Obviously, picking up a couple of additional forwards from the St. Louis Blues has caused there to be a bit of a logjam at that position, so they'd certainly like to send him to the minors. I don't think they'd really like to lose him, but at the same time, he is a player that wouldn't be shocking if he was picked up. He's still young enough and has produced well at the American Hockey League level. I could see a team that might be lower in the standings with more, roster opportunities right now that might be willing to give him a chance. He's got a cheaper contract, good age, good amount of pro experience now. They said doesn't mean he's going to get picked up, but it wouldn't be shocking if he did. He's appeared in 14 games for the Leafs this year, scoring 2 goals and 1 assist, while putting up almost a point per game in the American Hockey League, 27 points of 30 American Hockey League games. So we'll see what happens to Joey Anderson at 2 o'clock Eastern time tomorrow. We also have the Anaheim Ducks have winger Justin Kirkland on waivers. He's appeared in 7 games this year for the Ducks. Unfortunately, not putting up any points. He's a bit of a late bloomer. He's 26 years old. Just recently made his NHL debut, which is certainly nice to see. Obviously, I'm sure he'd like to stick in the NHL, but looks like they'd like to send him back to the AHL. And to do that, he'll need to clear waivers. So far, he's appeared in 19 games at the American Hockey League level, putting up 13 points. So Kirkland, I would say most likely will clear, but we'll find out tomorrow. Florida Panthers forward Chris Tierney, also on waivers today. The former Ottawa Senator and San Jose Sharks forward has taken some major steps back in his career. Obviously, at one point in San Jose, looked like having a bright future. Put up career numbers early in his time with the Ottawa Senators as well, getting a chance to play a bigger role. But certainly some back injuries and things he dealt with there have certainly caused some regression in his game. Signed a cheaper contract with the Panthers this year. Had a chance to go up and play, but for the most part, it's just not quite cutting it. He has 3 points in 13 games this year with the Panthers, while putting up 16 points in 20 games at the American Hockey League level. So Tierney might be an interesting veteran pickup for somebody, although I'd suspect out of the 3, Joey Anderson would be the most likely to be picked up. But stranger things have happened, and we'll find out at 2 o'clock Eastern time tomorrow. On to some injury updates as well here today. In case you missed it, I did have a video out that's posted to the channel, which you can get a little bit more in-depth analysis on the YouTube cards if you can click up there if you haven't already watched it. But Jake Muzzin of the Maple Leafs will be done for this season, including playoffs, and will not be reevaluated or any further updates provided by the Maple Leafs until the early part of training camp in the fall. So Muzzin has been out for the bulk of the year, only appearing in 4 games this year, dealing with a cervical spine injury is what they're saying. I know some were under the impression it was more of a concussion issue, which could have been connected as well, and doesn't mean he wasn't dealing with concussion at one point. I know he's had a history of that, which is unfortunate. It could impact his long-term health, so we certainly hope he's okay. His career could be in jeopardy. He's 34 years old, has a young family with 1 year left of his contract, so you gotta wonder if there's some serious question marks and things being asked. But the Leafs have consulted with numerous specialists, and they come to the conclusion that he should not play hockey and will not be able to go in all this year. So we'll see how things look in the fall. Nashville Predators centerman Ryan Johansson, big part of that team's offense, left the game, their last game last night, in a walking boot, and we've now confirmed that he needs foot surgery, so he's going to be out for an extended period of time. Big blow for the Preds. I know they're already kind of slipping over the playoff push, but considering that there was still hope in Nashville, not to say that it's all lost now, but certainly losing one of their top centers will not help matters. That's very much for sure. We don't have a definitive timeline on his recovery, but certainly going to be out for a while. I got to think that there's a possibility his season could be over, but we'll have to see on that. A few recalls here as well. The Canucks have recalled defenseman Guillaume Brisebois in centerman Natu Ratu. Of course, Ratu was just recently acquired in the Bo Horvat trade from the New York Islanders. The Islanders, speaking of them, have also recalled forward Otto Koivula, who's been up and down with the team a few times here in recent weeks. The Dallas Stars have also recalled Fredrik Olofsson and Matt Murray. Yes, not that Matt Murray who plays for the Maple Leafs, but he is another goaltender with the same name in the Stars organization. So we'll see if he gets much of an opportunity. Obviously, they're dealing with some injuries at that position. Now, going back to a reason why the Canucks have recalled some players, most likely part of it, especially the Guillaume Breeze ballpark where he's a defenseman, is because Luke Schenn is going to be held out and has been basically put on the sidelines for trade-related reasons, which is the new lingo you're seeing around the NHL this year. Teams, healthy scratching players to protect their assets, as we've seen on a few other occasions here. Luke Schenn traveled with the team to go to Nashville on their game against the Preds, and then, of course, ended up heading back home on his own call. Apparently, the team was going to hold him out, and so they gave him the option. He decided to head home. His wife is also pregnant and expecting to deliver a child within the next week or so as well, so it makes sense why he'd want to head home and might as well wait it out where he can have access to his family instead of being on the road. So Luke Schenn, not going to play anymore for the Canucks, that is going to be traded. We don't know where things are heading, but if they're holding him out, there definitely things are getting close. This has been speculated now. Starting yesterday, we found out around the same time that he wasn't going to play last night, and now we still don't have a completed deal. There's a number of teams that have been mentioned for Schenn. We've heard anywhere from Calgary, Boston, Toronto, Winnipeg's one as well, and now even the Pittsburgh Penguins name, according to Rick Dhaliwal, the Pens name is something he's heard a couple of times as well. I've seen some reports earlier saying that some teams like the Flames, Leafs, Bruins might think that they might be priced out of this one. Canucks were really pushing for a second-round pick, and they must feel like they're getting close. Now, Dhaliwal also said that they may decide to take a third or fourth rounder if a team's also willing to include a prospect. So they might get a pick and a prospect. Just depends. But if they do that, the pick will be obviously a little bit later. So Luke Schenn going to be dealt from the Canucks. We just don't know where that is heading. There could even be other teams. He's a type of player with a fairly cheap contract, lots of experience, Stanley Cups, good character guy, a good third pair guy who could be, a physical presence, not afraid to drop the gloves, and has been built for playoffs. He's been through the playoffs numerous times now. So certainly a good add by many teams. We just don't know which one is going to pony up that right offer for the Canucks to pull the trigger. But with Pittsburgh, there's also rumors that they have Jeff Petry on the market. Now, I know the part of the reason why the Penguins have been mentioned here, Rick Dhaliwal in Vancouver made mention that, of course, Brian Burke, team president, was really upset here with some recent games with the Pens not having enough toughness and kind of getting pushed around on the back end a little bit, and not real thrilled with their decor. So adding a physical presence like Schenn very well might make sense. It might be somebody to have their eye on. There could be other defensemen that also fit that mold that they may take a look at depending on price tag. But certainly Jeff Petry's name, according to National Hockey Now and Dan Krajinski, he put that out yesterday, that Petry's name is out there. Doesn't mean for sure he's going to be traded, but it looks like the Penguins are willing to make a more substantial move with money going out, and that Petry might be that guy. It's hard to say. I mean, they wanted to bring him in and thought they would be a lot better off with Petry and Letang both back there on the right side, but certainly maybe they're having a change of heart now and just need a different look back there. Hard to say, but Pittsburgh could be a team to watch. When it comes to the Vancouver Canucks as well, Elliot Friedman in today's 32 Thoughts blog also confirms they're still working hard on a Brock Boeser trade. He mentioned Washington is a team that he's heard have interest, but he said that numerous sources he's talked to, some have said the Caps are definitely interested, and others have said completely not. So he's kind of getting some mixed signals there, so he's not sure if they're in or out of the sweepstakes on that one. But Michael Russo, of course, who covers the Wild for The Athletic, also on a recent podcast talked to the agent for Brock Boeser, Ben Hankinson, who we know has been confirmed publicly that he has consent to speak to other teams on the Boeser's behalf and the Canucks behalf to try to facilitate a trade. Now, it doesn't mean he's going to end up, brokering the deal, but he'll certainly be involved. And if he can go back to the Canucks and say, this team definitely has interest and would be, that type of thing, and kind of get the ball rolling. Well, he mentioned that the Wild, who have been linked to Boeser for quite a long time, Boeser's from the state of Minnesota. It's well known that if he's going to be traded from Vancouver, that he would welcome a trade back to his home state. That the Wild have a complicated salary cap situation, though, with the Suter and Parisi buyouts that are going to be kicking in the high year next year, and obviously take up a lot of their cap. It makes things really complicated. I mean, there's other parts that they might be looking to move, but his agent, Ben Hankins, mentioned on the podcast that the Wild would like to do it, and they're trying to move things around to see if it's possible. And Bill Guerin will be more likely to maybe make the trade if the Wild continue to win and to get closer to the playoffs. They had a big win last night, but if they do happen to go through a few losses here and happen to start to fall back, then he might change his mind and not want to be a buyer right now, which could complicate things further. But certainly you got to think players like Jordan Greenway, who has been rumored to be a player the Wild want to get a fresh start for. Kalen Adamson's been a healthy scratch for I think 4 or 5 games. You have to think there's a possibility they move him. Matt Dumba's a pending UFA who's I don't think has a future in Minnesota based on their cap as well and based on where the direction that they'd like to go in the blue line. So to me, if you see the Wild making another move, or if the Canucks become willing to take any of those players back, it could certainly open the door to kind of move things along in a Boeser trade. So we'll see. But certainly goes to show that the Wild are definitely interested in trying to work on something. Staying with Vancouver as well, it's also mentioned in Elliot Friedman's 32 Thoughts blog today that he believes the LA Kings are going to make a run at goaltender Thatcher Demko. Now, Demko's not a player that we can say will be traded for sure within Vancouver. I think Luke Schenn, most likely, and pretty much a done deal. It's just a matter of where he's going. Brock Boeser, also extremely likely. He mentions in his blog as well that JT Miller, because of the contract, is probably a slim chance he goes anywhere. But I'm sure teams will probably ask to see if they can get him for next to nothing, which I don't think is going to be the case. So I think the Canucks are likely going to hang on to him. But Demko is a player who was speculated maybe wanted out or wanted a fresh start, but then denied that publicly himself in a recent interview. But doesn't mean the Canucks couldn't consider selling him off if they get a good return. We know LA has lots of interesting picks and prospects. Doesn't mean they're going to want to part with them. I don't know what they would offer for Demko, but certainly a team like LA makes sense to try to add a younger, upbeat goaltender like Jonathan Quick's getting near the end of his career. They've had issues with Cal Peterson, which is, I'm sure, somebody they'd probably want to move prior to getting a guy like Demko if they're going to pull that off. I don't know that the Canucks would want Peterson. I don't think, but time will tell. Demko is going to be an interesting piece for sure. Adding him to LA's mix with what they have for young defense and young forwards would be a potential game changer to really elevate them into cup contenders, in my opinion, if he can get back to playing at his absolute best as well. Now, staying with goalies that might be traded, it's also mentioned in 32 Thoughts blog that Elliot Friedman says he believes that the Anaheim Ducks and John Gibson might mutually agree that it'd be better to get him a new home and a fresh start, that the Ducks really want to give more opportunity to young goaltender Lucas Dostal. Dostal's played extremely well, and I understand the need and the desire to give him an opportunity for sure. Of course, Friedman goes on to mention that, Anthony Stolarz might be a much easier trade given his contract and everything like that. But at the same time, that not to be surprised, I wouldn't rule out Gibson moving. Now, to me, that's a more likely deal for the offseason, just like Demko. He mentions for both goaltenders that because of the contracts and everything at the time of year, that, maybe a deadline deal is in the works, but more likely, much more likely to happen in the offseason, in the summertime, around between draft and free agency, when you see trade activity really pick up around then as well. So certainly not surprising. I mean, John Gibson's been rumored in it numerous times that maybe want out of Anaheim. It's never been confirmed. Anytime it's come up, he's always denied it. But you have to wonder with where the Ducks are heading, does it make sense for them to hang on to Gibson? But he's got a longer-term deal too, and our team's going to want to take that on. I think he's a really good goaltender on a struggling team. I do wonder if he would do better in a different scenario, different situation, but we'll see. A couple of big-time goaltenders in a new scenario might be able to get their careers projecting more the way they were hoping for and get them out of a tough situation and maybe into something better, but we'll see. No real link to where Gibson could go, just that he and the Ducks might agree it's time. Now, the other big one that came out late yesterday, which I haven't talked about yet, was Frank Saravalli of DailyFaceoff.com suggesting that the Ottawa Senators have expressed interest in Blues defenseman Colton Parayko. Of course, Parayko's in the first year of an 8-year deal at $6.5 million. He suggests that Parayko could be, what did he call him, the white whale that the Predatorians were looking for on the blue line, suggesting that they would obviously have to trade a young defenseman in their system, like either an Eric Brandstrom or Lassie Thompson or Jacob Ritter-Docker. One of those defensemen would almost definitely have to be included. And you're probably looking at also either a first-round pick or maybe another younger forward. I don't know what else they would want in return, but you got to wonder, is this the right move? Now, of course, from Parayko's standpoint, he's got a huge size. He's a big guy, but doesn't always play like a big, imposing guy, which I know is something I've seen Blues fans kind of get frustrated with at times. But back in 2019, man, he had an incredible run. It was a big part of that Blues Stanley Cup championship team for sure. Seems like a great character guy. Really good dude off the ice from what we've seen from Parayko. 6'6", like 230 pounds. Like he's big. He's a huge guy. More defensive first. You get a little bit of offense, but could he be a good partner for a guy like Jake Sanderson on the second pair, or you could put Shabbat with Zub on the first pair? It might be a good fit, but it's a lot of term. It's 7 more years of Parayko, who was not having a great season in St. Louis, but we know would he get things back on track if he were to get a fresh start, new scenery somewhere else. The thing with the Blues defensemen like Parayko and Torrey Krug and others that have been rumored that the Blues really want to move at least one to free up some cap space to kind of help with this retool they're expecting to go through in the summer. We've seen a lot of other vets go out. O'Reilly's gone, Jerry's gone, Tarasenko's out, Barbashev's likely going. It's heavily rumored that they want to move a defenseman too, which will really help just give that more flexibility and change up the dynamic a bit. And I haven't been overly thrilled with the Blue Line's performance anyway, so to get a different look and help with the cap, and there's just a variety of things that would really help with in that sense. So I have no doubt that Doug Armstrong will likely be exploring his options for defenseman. I think Torrey Krug might be the better, easier target to trade. He's got a little bit less term than Parayko, same kind of money. But certainly more mobile, good puck mover. There's some speculation that Vegas might have interest in him. I don't know how they'd make it work money-wise, but certainly the connection to his former coach, Bruce Cassidy, who knows what he can bring, and it was a huge part of that Bruins power play for a number of years as well. So hard to say, but Parayko to Ottawa, to me, makes some sense. I just don't know from Ottawa's perspective, where they've been searching for this top 4 right shot defenseman for so long. Is he the guy? I don't know. I mean, I know they've been linked to Mackenzie Weegar. The rumor is right now that Weegar is not available. Could he become available in the summertime, though, if Calgary finishes not the way they want and they might decide to make further changes? They might want to evaluate that to see. Erik Karlsson's been up there. Of course, that contract is a monster. Will be really tough for anybody to take on. So that might be a pipe dream, but obviously he could be a great fit there as well. But again, probably a slim chance given the contract. That's just unfortunate the way it is, but what can you do? And there's other names out there as well, even a Carson Soucy in Seattle. Different style defenseman again, but somebody who could be more defense first, probably a lot cheaper. Seattle is reportedly looking to move him because they don't believe he's going to be re-signing in the offseason. So, I don't know, another option there. But Parayko makes some sense. I'm just not convinced that's the guy for Ottawa. And given the contract, if they get the deal done, give up some assets and get stuck with that contract and it doesn't work out, that could be a major stumbling block for them taking some big steps forward. So let me know your thoughts. Is Parayko the guy for Ottawa, or should they continue shopping? And lastly here, I want to touch on the Toronto Maple Leafs. The other part of Friedman's blog today talks about how the Leafs have obviously added lots up front with O'Reilly and Nola Cherry, and that the likelihood is that they're going to attempt to add on the blue line next. Now, he mentions a couple of grittier type of defensemen like Radko Gudas in Florida or Scott Mayfield of the New York Islanders. There's a couple names to watch. They have been mentioned, as I mentioned before, to Luke Schenn. I don't know that Schenn is a likelihood based on what the Canucks are asking, but I don't know that the asking prices on these other guys will be much less. I'm not sure that Lou Lamoriello is going to want to go into sell mode here with Mayfield if he thinks they can make the playoffs, but right now things are not trending good for the Islanders. The schedule, the number of games played, just the whole math equation here is not really overly favorable. The teams like Pittsburgh and Washington right around them. Then they get teams coming up as well, like Buffalo, like Detroit, even to some degree Ottawa, Florida. They're all kind of jammed pretty tight there. I don't know that the Islanders are going to have the greatest opportunity. They have to take care of their own business, which is going to be challenging. Moving on another defenseman like Mayfield's not going to help that matter, so I don't know what approach Lou is going to take in that front. Same goes for Gudas in Florida. I mean, at the same time, I don't know if the Florida Panthers are going to want to become sellers or they're going to want to try to keep pushing and get in. They will likely have to make some move, though, as Anthony Duclair comes back, but we don't know what that's going to be here just yet. But the Leafs looking to add on the blue line. Mayfield's a guy that's been rumored actually to the Leafs before. It's been a while since this has popped up, but, as somebody who's on a fairly good contract for a right-shot defenseman, has good amount of experience, good playoff guy before as well, the Islanders on multiple occasions. So it does make some sense. I'm just not completely convinced that they're ready to go down that road. But if they get closer to the deadline, which is not that far away, we're only like 10 days away or whatever we are now, the Islanders might make a decision to move on from Mayfield, which might be something they do in the offseason anyway. So we'll see what they do. Let me know your thoughts on all today's news and rumors down in the comments. We'll discuss further. If you're new to the channel, make sure you subscribe and stick around. We'll keep you up to date with the latest news, rumors, and analysis of all 32 NHL teams. Thank you for watching, and I'll catch you next time.